Getting ready to go live now, checking everything out, making sure the audio is set and ready to go. I've had an interesting weekend, so things kind of got out of whack, but I'm gonna get these two streams back to back tonight. And first one is going to be Strange Stories. First, I'm going to check the audio on Beam, make sure I can hear myself. And Beam sounds good. And after this, I am going to go to Rumble, see how it sounds on Rumble. Earlier, I was able to go in and get everything set up and ready to go. It sounds good on Rumble. Hit refresh on X, see if it went through. I've been having issues with X, but yeah. Now, I wanted to say something to everybody too, and give me a chance to talk more, but Skype is shutting down on April the 5th, I believe. Or May the 5th. It's May the 5th, yeah. And everybody's making plans on what they're going to be doing. Also, Minds Chat is shutting down for Elements here in the next couple days. I also wanted to mention that. So I confirmed it with Satori D on X that Infinite Imaginarium did convert over to the actual Elements platform from Mind's chat. So they are going to still be up and running on Elements. I posted their chat information on the general chat room for Minds on the actual Elements thing that's there too. Now, for me and Mark and Tan, we have like two big events coming up. Like I've got to, we've got to get Elements set up before chat ends and everything, and also I've got to get everything organized for Skype too when they shut down. So I just wanted to put that out there to everybody so that everybody knows that we are doing a lot of changes when it comes to that as well. So it sounds like the audio sounds good on DLive and on Twitch. Going to Kick now to check Kick out. Okay, Kick sounds good. YouTube has fired up. I'd also like to remind everybody too that we do have the Wonderful World of Weirdness on Discord, so that will always be there. If anybody wants to join with that, I believe I've been putting the information for the link in the description below. You guys are more than welcome to join there. And also, well, like I just said, we are on Minds.com for anybody who wants to join the groups on Minds.com. So there you go. So here we go. So here, okay, X sounds good. So we have everything up and running. Now tonight, like I said, it's going to be Strange Stories and then Ancient Mysteries. Now, Strange Stories is interesting because I'm going to be continuing with my weird science videos, and tonight I'm talking about Vladimir Demikov. Now he was a Soviet scientist, and he was known for his controversial pioneering experiments in organ transplantation. Now there is other people that were involved with him that kind of got mixed in together. It's kind of like what I said with my last two, where the tissue transplants for penises was mixed up with the Soviet ape project. There were two separate scientists. This one, Vladimir, he was mixed up with another person as well, and I'll go through that when I start. But that is going to be the topic tonight. Later on, I am going to come on and I am going to continue with ancient mysteries as well. So I will stop this stream once I'm done with it, and then I will go into that after that. Both of these episodes are going to actually be quite interesting, to be honest with you. So let me go ahead and make sure I got my coffee and get set up and ready to go. Like I said, I had an interesting weekend. Things got all out of whack. I was actually supposed to do something with Nancy Planetta, and I had to cancel it because of issues that happened with my mom. So, and then after everything was done there, it ended up being like 1:30 in the morning before I could get home, and I wasn't able to do my stream like I had hoped to do after that. Besides, I didn't want to do it because it was a pretty bad day, you know, especially with the topics that I'm going to be going through. I really didn't want to do that at that time. So I've got one more minute. I'm going to start this at 11 o'clock. So we're going to have an interesting midnight back-to-back feature, I guess, for the wonderful world of weirdness here on Sunday night. I was also going to join up with Naroki too, but I really did need to do this. So here we go. So here it is. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Strange Stories. Tonight, I am bringing you another story. My name is Roger Hanson, and this is the wonderful world of weirdness. Almost forgot to do that. Now, tonight, or the wonderful world of weirdness and strange stories. I need to point that out. I keep forgetting to say that. I'm also doing this not only for strange stories, but for strangeness on Strange Stories, my other platform that I have, or my other channel that I have on YouTube. So I've got Strange Stories and the wonderful world of weirdness. Now, if you want to see this in its full context later on, you can see this on Strange Stories, and this will never be edited out, but I am going to archive this. I'm going to edit it out and make it into 15-minute segments and put that on the wonderful world of weirdness later on so that you can catch it again on there. So you'll be able to see this again 2 times after the stream is done. So with that being said, I'm going to get into the topic. Tonight, I am going to continue my strange story topics of weird science, and I'm going to discuss Vladimir Dimitrov. Now, Vladimir Dimitrov was a Soviet scientist known for his controversial and pioneering experiments in organ transplantation. Now, his most infamous experiment was the creation of 2-headed dogs. This was conducted in the 1950s. Dimitrov performed multiple experiments where he surgically attached the head and front legs of a smaller dog onto the body of a larger dog. This was done by connecting the circulatory system of both dogs, allowing the second head to remain alive for a limited time. He would decapitate the smaller dog just below the shoulders, leaving its brain, front legs, and part of its chest intact. The smaller dog's head and upper torso were then grafted onto the side of a larger host dog. Blood vessels were carefully connected, ensuring blood flow to both heads. Now, the transplanted head was able to move, react, drink milk, and even attempt to bite, though it had no functional digestive system. The longest-lived two-headed dog reportedly survived for about 2 months before rejection and infection set in. Most experiments resulted in the dogs dying within a few days due to immune system rejection and complications. Now, while the experiments was grotesque by modern ethical standards, it played a role in advancing knowledge of organ transplantation and circulatory system connections. His work paved the way for successful human heart transplants, influencing Christian Barnard, the surgeon who performed the first human heart transplant in 1967. Now, his experiment also helped demonstrate the major challenges of organ rejection and transplantation. Even though that sounds like I do condone it, don't be fooled. I don't really condone this kind of practice that took place. And I found out in a lot of my research that it took place a lot. And that's kind of what this weird science part of Strange Stories is about. It's to kind of give everybody an idea of what animals and humans all went through in order for you to get a lot of these supposed advancements in the medical profession before it came here. So just so you know, this is the kind of stuff that took place. None of this has to do with conspiracies at all. These are actual factual events that took place. If you have any doubt in what I'm saying here, just check it out. Do the research yourself, and you'll find out real quick that nothing that I say here is actually conspiracy theories or make-believe. This is actually real events that took place. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the ethical concerns that were involved in this. This stuff was considered highly unethical, and it still is according to today's standards, due to extreme animal sufferings. There's a lot of suffering when it comes to what the animals had to go through with this. And there's no real medical benefit from creating conscious suffering chimeric animals, okay? There's no benefit from it whatsoever. Now, the Soviet Union at the time had very little oversight on animal experimentations, and they allowed such experiments to be conducted. So there was actually, they actually openly allowed it. So now, with that being said, I'm going to start talking a little bit, get more into it. I'm going to talk about the immune system and the rejection and complications that took place in Vladimir Demonov's two-headed dog experiments. They were primarily due to graft rejection, vascular complications, and infection. Major challenge in organ and tissue transplantation is the recipient's immune system recognizing the grafted tissues as foreign and then attacking it. Now, the smaller dog's head and upper body had a different genetic makeup from the host dog. Since immunosuppressive drugs like cyclosporine had not been developed, the host's immune system recognized the foreign tissue as an invader and mounted an aggressive response. White blood cells, primarily T cells, attack the grafted tissues, causing inflammation, necrosis, which is tissue death, and ultimately organ failure. Now, the second head and forelimbs started showing signs of rejection within days, including discoloration, loss of function, and eventual death. For the grafted head to survive, it needed a continuous and sufficient blood supply from the host body. However, Dimikov's surgical methods had significant limitations. Blood clots would form in the newly connected arteries, cutting off oxygen to the transplanted tissues. The the fusion of major blood vessels was imprecise, leading to slow blood flow, which caused ischemia, which is oxygen deprivation, and rapid tissue deterioration. The two-headed structure created a high demand for blood, but the larger host dog's circulatory system struggled to maintain proper pressure and perfusion of both heads. No, to both heads. Now, the surgical procedures at the time also lacked modern antiseptic and sterile techniques. Open wounds and exposed tissues from the grafting process allowed bacteria to enter the bloodstream. The infection would spread, leading to fever, organ failure, and death. Some of the dogs developed pus-like abscesses at the surgical sites. The second head retained partial brain activity but lacked full nervous system integration. It could move and drink, but had no functional digestive system, meaning it couldn't process food. Now, since the host dog's brain controlled the body, the grafted head had no real motor control, causing disorganized and involuntary movements. Most two-headed dogs survived only a few days due to rejection and vascular failure, like I'd said previously. Now, the longest-lived experiment reportedly lasted about a month, but the transplanted head eventually died due to immune rejection and circulatory collapse. While considered horrific by modern ethical standards, Dimikov's work did influence later organ transplant researchers, including the first successful heart transplant in 1967. However, the lack of immunosuppressive drugs and advanced microsurgical techniques made his experiments doomed to fail in the long run. Now, experiments like Vladimir Dimikov's two-headed dog were significant despite their ethical concerns because they demonstrated that vascular connections could be surgically altered and maintained, at least temporarily. Now, his methods of reconnecting arteries, veins, and nerves helped develop techniques in modern heart, lung, and liver transplants. His pioneering work in heart and lung transplantation inspired surgeons like Christian Barnard, who I just mentioned before, who performed the first successful human heart transplant, and that was in 1967. Now, his experiments also contributed to better techniques in anastomosis. That's the suturing blood vessels together, which is essential in modern transplants. Now, for a lot of his contributions, they weren't really for the successes that he had. It was for the failures that he had. So I want to emphasize that there was a lot of suffering going on with animals when it comes to this. I don't want to take that away from the fact, um, but I do want to say that later on, these people actually used the information that was done because of these experiments to um, advance in the research that took place later on. So, since most of his grafts failed due to immune rejection, his work helped demonstrate the need for immunosuppressive drugs, leading to the development of cyclosporin in the 1970s. Now, many unethical and disturbing experiments in medical science took place before and after Demikov's work. Alex Carrel in 1910 developed surgical techniques for blood vessel anastomosis and experimented with organ transplantation in animals. He kept tissues alive outside the body, laying the groundwork for later organ preservation. Soviet scientist Sergei Bryakov-Henko. Now, this is the guy who I always have a hard time saying his last name for one, but he's the guy I also wanted to bring up who gets confused with Vladimir. Now, a lot of people mix these two Soviet scientists up too because their research was really, really closely connected to one another. Well, not connected to one another, but like the stories intertwined now. But understand these are two separate scientists that did this. Um, this guy is the one who was really big on wanting to create the iron lung. So, just so we know. But he created the autojector. It's a primitive heart lung machine to keep a severed dog's head alive for minutes, even reacting to stimuli. This was used to advance knowledge of artificial circulation and uh, resuscitation techniques. Now, after him, we get into the Nazis' freezing and pressure chamber experiments conducted at Dachau concentration camp, DACHAU concentration camp, where prisoners were subjected to extreme cold and low pressure experiments to study survival techniques for German pilots. After that, we also had Dr. Joseph Mengele's twin experiments, which conducted cruel genetic experiments on twins at Auschwitz, injecting them with chemicals and performing unnecessary surgeries. Now, besides that, you had the Japanese Imperial Army that conducted live vivisections, biological warfare tests, and frostbite experiments on prisoners of war. Now, going on from that, after Japan, you had the CIA's MK Ultra project, which took place between the 1950s and the 1970s and believed to still be taking place today. But according to the early experiments that took place, they conducted mind control experiments using LSD, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation on unwitting subjects. Now, I know MK Ultra is involved a lot with a lot of conspiracy theory, but understand that MK Ultra was a real project, and these are things that took place within MK Ultra that have been confirmed. These are facts. These are not fiction. They're not conspiracy theories. This is what took place. So, after saying that, I do want to move on to Robert White in the 1970s, who successfully transplanted the head of one monkey onto another monkey's body. The monkey regained consciousness but was paralyzed from the neck down and died soon after due to immune rejection. Then we have the U.S. and the Soviet Union, who exposed soldiers and prisoners to high radiation doses to test nuclear effects. Now, while grotesque, these experiments did contribute to organ transplantation advancements, which involved better vascular connections and rejection research. Anesthetic and resuscitation improvements, such as early versions of life support machines. Besides that, there was stronger ethical guidelines that were put down because of these things, which led to informed consent laws and banning human experimentation without oversight. Now, I am going to be diving into that more too as we go along, because I want to kind of go over these supposed consent laws and these bans of human experimentations without oversight a little bit more. But before we do that, I want to discuss necrosis and what that entails. Now, necrosis is the premature, uncontrollable death of cells and tissues, often due to injury, injection, or lack of blood supply. Unlike apoptosis, a natural programmed form of cell death, necrosis is pathological and typically triggers inflammation. The cause of necrosis is one thing that we should know. Okay, now necrosis it can result from various conditions. Okay, ischemia, which is the lack of blood flow, and that would good examples of that would be like a heart attack or a stroke or gangrene. Okay, and yes, we will be talking about gangrene. Now, the blood supply is usually cut off, starving tissues or oxygen, and it starves tissues of oxygen and nutrients. Now, another cause could be trauma and mechanical injury, and that would be like burns, crush injuries, or frostbite. Physical destruction of cells disrupt their function, basically. Another cause could be infection. This would entail flesh-eating bacteria, necrotizing fasciitis, I guess is what it would be called. And that would be tubular collosis. And that entails bacteria and viruses that destroy tissues directly or via toxins. Another cause could be chemical or toxin exposure, and that would be from like snake venom, drug overdose, things of that nature. Cocaine, which causes vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction is what they call it, leading to necrosis. That's a good example of what happens with drug overdoses. So, and a good example of that would be like harsh substances, poison, or like burn cells. Yeah, like harsh substances, poison, or burn cells because of the overdose or because of the snake venom, poisons, stuff like that. So now also there's autoimmune disorders, and a good example of that would be like lupus. And that can cause vasculitis, leading to necrotic tissue. And of course, there's radiation exposure, which a good example is radiation therapy and its side effects. Radiation damage DNA, leading to cell death. So you're going to get cell death whenever you're like a cancer patient going in to get radiation for cancer treatment and stuff of that nature. So now, after we get done with that, I want to talk about the types of necrosis. There's the cognitive necrosis, and that's the most common. It's caused by ischemia, which is lack of blood supply. Now, the appearance of this and what it looks like is it's a firm, pale tissue. It's usually seen in heart attacks. And the cells lose their structure but retain shape for a while. It's common in heart, kidney, and spleen due to high protein content. Now, after that, you have liquefactive necrosis, and that is caused by bacterial infections and strokes. Again, with strokes, and it looks like a pus-filled soft tissues seen in brain infarcts. So the process of all that is white blood cells flood the area, releasing enzymes that liquefy tissue, and it's common in brain, lung, and abscesses. So after that, we have caseous necrosis, and that's cheese-like. That's the really cheesy kind of looking necrosis, and that's caused by tuberculosis or TB. It's commonly called TB as an abbreviation. And it looks like a white, cheesy-like material common in the lungs. What happens there, the process behind that is body walls off the infection, creating granulomas, which is dead tissue surrounded by immune cells. So you have that, and then you have the fat necrosis, and that's caused by trauma to fat-rich areas like the breast or the pancreas. Now, this, in appearance, is chalky with white deposits. And the process behind this is damaged fat cells that release fatty acids. This combined with calcium forms like a soap-like it forms soap-like deposits. So after that, we go to fibrinoid necrosis, and this is called by immune rejection. That's autoimmune diseases and severe hypertension, things of that nature. Now, this looks pink, fibrin-like deposits, which are in blood vessels. And the process behind this is the immune system attacks blood vessel walls, which leads to leaking and necrosis. Now, this is where we start getting into the bad stuff, the really yucky stuff. This is the gangrenous necrosis, large-scale tissue death. And this is caused by severe ischemia or bacterial infections. There's 3 different types, and those types are dry gangrene, which is black and it's got black shriveled skin. That's usually caused because of frostbite or diabetes. Then you have wet gangrene, which is oozing, and it's also foul smelling. Now, this is caused by bacterial infections. Then you have gas gangrene, which is caused by Clostridium bacteria, which produces gas bubbles in tissues. Now, the effects of necrosis is this. Now, the immune system responds with swelling and redness. Then dead tissues become a breeding ground for bacteria. Now, if necrosis affects muscles, nerves, or organs, permanent disabilities may result. Widespread tissue death can lead to systemic infection and organ failure. Now, for treatment and management, there's surgical removal. That's disbridgement, cutting away dead tissues. Then you have just straight up amputation in severe cases, such as gangrene. Now, antibiotics can be used to prevent or treat the infections. Then you have hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is used in gas gangrene to kill anaerobic. I have a hard time with that. Anaerobic bacteria. Bacteria. After that, you have revascularization, which is restoring blood flow. That would be angioplasty or ischemic limbs. So then that's what you got right there. Revascularization is what it is. And that's restoring blood flow through angioplasty or ischemic limbs. Now, immune rejection occurs when the body's immune system recognizes transplanted tissue or an implanted foreign structure as non-self and attacks it. Now, this response is driven by T cells and antibodies that recognize foreign antigens on donor cells. Now, there's different types of immune rejection as well. There is the hyperacute rejection that happens within minutes to hours, and that's caused by pre-existing antibodies that attack the transplant immediately. It's also caused by blood vessels clotting and cutting off circulation. Vascular thrombosis is what that's called. Now, the usual result for that is transplanted organs die from ischemia, which is lack of blood flow. And incompatible blood types in organ transplants is another issue. Then there's acute rejection. That happens from days to weeks. It's caused by T cells that attack donor cells. Inflammation damages blood vessels and organ tissues, resulting in organ failure unless treated with immunosuppressants. I am going to get into the immunosuppressants as well so that you guys kind of get an idea about what that's about. Now, after that, you have chronic rejection. This happens from months to years. This is caused by long-term immune attacks, which lead to fibrosis, which is scar tissue formation. Blood vessels narrow, and that's called vasculopathy. vasculopathy or vasculopathy. That reduces the oxygen supply, resulting in organs gradually losing function. Now, Vladimir Burmakov's two-headed dog experiment had to do with the immune system of the host dog attacked the transplanted second head. The rejection caused blood clotting, inflammation, and necrosis, leading to death. Now, you have to understand, too, that there were other experiments that took place as well. There was pig-to-human organ transplants, which required genetic modifications, which reduce immune rejection. This was going on back then as well. There were quite a few of these experiments that just didn't happen in the 1900s either. Like, they go back into the 1800s too. As a matter of fact, Mary Shelley, I believe was her name, the one who did Frankenstein. She was inspired because of these kind of surgeries that took place back in the 1800s, which actually resulted in her being inspired to write the book Frankenstein, just so you guys know. So whenever I'm discussing this is actually what I am getting into and discussing. I'm going down that road, you know what I mean, discussing that topic. So now, after that, I want to go forward with this because we still got a ways to go. Now, circulatory collapse occurs when the blood flow drops so severely that the body cannot deliver oxygen to tissues, leading to shock, organ failure, and death. Causes of circulatory collapse is septic shock, which is infection related. Now, that is when bacteria releases toxins that cause blood vessel dilation and fluid leakage, which results in blood pressure drop, which results in blood pressure dropping. You know, organs don't get enough oxygen, stuff like that. Hemorrhagic shock is another thing, which is blood loss. That's caused by severe bleeding that reduces total blood volume, resulting in the fact that the heart can't pump enough blood to maintain circulation. Now, after that, you also have neurogenic shock, which is nervous system damage. And that's caused by spinal cord injuries, which prevents blood vessels from constricting, resulting in extreme blood vessel dilation and causes a sudden drop in pressure. Now, after that, you also have cardiogenic shock, which is heart failure, and that's caused by the heart being too weak to pump blood after a heart attack, for example, you know, things of that nature. Now, that's resulted because of the blood stagnates, leading to organ failure eventually. Anaphylactic shock is basically like a severe allergy, and that's caused by allergic reactions, which cause widespread blood vessel dilation and fluid loss. And that usually results in swelling, low blood pressure, and difficulty breathing. Then you have organ rejection. Basically, it comes down to this. You have organ rejection, inflammation, blood vessel damage, circulatory collapse. Now, if an immune response blocks blood vessels in a transplanted organ, it can lead to ischemia and necrosis. If enough organ systems fail, circulatory collapse follows, leading to shock and death. Now, immunosuppressants are drugs that reduce the body's immune response to prevent rejection of transplanted organs or tissues. Now, they are essential in organ transplants, autoimmune disease treatment, and xenotransplantation, which is cross-species transplants. And here is where I'm wanting to get into the types of immunosuppressant drugs. First, you have calcineurin inhibitors, which is CNIs. That is stuff like cyclosporin and tacrolimus, and this blocks T cell activation by inhibiting calcineurin or calcineurin, a protein needed for immune signaling. It prevents the body from attacking transplanted tissues, but the side effects are kidney toxicity, high blood pressure, increased infection risk. Now, after that, you have anti-proliferative agents. Now, that would be like you have mycophenolate, mofetil, which is MMF, and then you have azathioprine, which is AZATHIOPRINE, and this inhibits DNA synthesis in T and B cells, preventing immune activation. It slows immune system response without completely shutting it down. The side effects to that is bone marrow suppression, increased infection risk. So then after those two, we come to mTOR inhibitors. This is sirolimus, which is rapamycin, and this is everolimus. And this blocks the mTOR pathway, preventing T cell growth. And it reduces immune activity while promoting blood vessel health in transplanted organs. The side effects for this is delayed wound healing and metabolic tissues. Now, this one is the one that I've heard of the most. This is corticosteroids, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of corticosteroids, but this is the one that I've heard the most of. And this involves prednisone, methylprednisolone, and it's supposed to reduce inflammation by suppressing multiple immune pathways. The effect is short-term immune suppression to prevent acute rejection, and the side effects is weight gain, osteoporosis, and diabetes, and there's also mood changes. Yeah, so after that, there is monoclonal antibodies, targeted immunotherapy is what it basically is. Now, this has basiliximab, which is anti-IL-2, and then it has rituximab, which is RITUXIMAB, and that's anti-CD20. Now, this specifically blocks immune system signals that trigger rejection. The effects provides precision immune suppression with fewer side effects. And the side effects are flu-like symptoms, increased infection, and with increased infection risk. So after that, I want to get into microsurgery. Microsurgery involves using precision instruments and magnification to perform delicate surgeries, particularly for vascular connections, nerve repair, and organ transplantation. Now, vascular anastomosis, which is blood vessel connection, involves micro sutures, very fine stitches, or surgical glues, which are used to connect donor and recipient blood vessels under a microscope. Um, it's essential in heart, liver, kidney, and limb transplants to restore blood flow. Um, Now, the advancements are the use of lasers instead of stitches to create like precise vessel connections. Then there's also the ability to create custom-made blood vessels, which help reduce rejection risks and stuff of that nature. So they can actually make custom-made vessels instead of like transplanting blood vessels and stuff of that nature, which that's kind of crazy as well. But after that, we have nerve regeneration and transplantation. Now, this method is a microsurgical suturing of severed nerves to restore function. Now, the application for it is like hand transplants, facial reconstruction, spinal cord injury repair, and stuff of that nature. The advancements in that is stem cell enhanced nerve grafts that improve recovery. Then you have bioengineering nerve conduits that help to guide nerve regrowth. Bioengineering and stem cell research, basically. So, composite tissue transplantation is another thing that's face and limb transplants. The method behind that is multiple tissues like skin, muscle, bone, nerves. They are transplanted as a unit. Now, the application behind that is that face transplants are for like severe trauma victims, and hand transplants are for like amputees. This requires a lifelong immunosuppressive regimen, and that's due to high rejection risks. So, after that, you also come to 3D blueprinting and tissue engineering. Now, the method behind that is that it uses 3D printed scaffolds made from biological materials to regenerate tissues. The application for that is printing skin grafts for burn victims, creating customized organs like kidneys and hearts, using patients' own cells to reduce rejection, of course. And then there is microsurgery that allows precise transplantation of organs and limbs. And then there also is newer methods like 3D blueprinting, which aim to reduce the need for lifelong immunosuppression. Cyclosporin is a powerful immunosuppressive drug primarily used to prevent organ rejection in transplant patients. It was first discovered in 1971 from the fungus Tolypocladium inflatum and became a breakthrough treatment in the transplantation medicine during the 1980s. Cyclosporin works by targeting the immune system's T cells, which are key players in organ rejection. It specifically inhibits calcineurin, an enzyme necessary for activating T lymphocytes. Now, by blocking calcineurin, cyclosporin prevents the production of interleukin-2, which is IL-2, a cytokine that signals T cells to multiply and attack foreign tissues. This suppression reduces the body's ability to mount an immune response against transplanted organs. Now, cyclosporin prevents rejection of kidney, liver, heart, lung, and bone marrow. It treats conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, and Crohn's disease. It's usually used in ophthalmic drops, which is restasis, to treat chronic dry eye syndrome. Cyclosporin is typically taken orally by capsule or liquid for organ transplant patients or autoimmune diseases. It is also done intravenously in cases where oral intake isn't possible. And you can also take it topically as eye drops for certain inflammatory eye conditions. Now, cyclosporin has several serious side effects due to its broad suppression of the immune system. You have nephrotoxicity, which is kidney damage. Most common side effects affecting up to 25% of patients. You have hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and it often requires additional medication. You also have increased infection risk due to a weakened immunity. Then you have gingival hyperplasia, which is overgrowth of gum tissue. Then you have tremors and neurological tissues, which may cause hand tremors, headaches, and seizures. Now, you also have what they call hirsutism, which is excessive hair growth, especially in female patients. Before cyclosporin, organ rejection was a common and often fatal complication. Its introduction in the 1980s revolutionized transplant medicine, significantly improving survival rates and making organ transplantation a more viable long-term treatment. Cyclosporin is now often combined with other immunosuppressants like tacrolimus, mycophenolate mofetil, corticosteroids to create multi-drug regimens that lower the risk of rejection while minimizing side effects. Newer no, immunosuppressive drugs have been developed by cyclosporin. No, no, many newer immunosuppressive drugs have been developed, but cyclosporin remains a cornerstone of transplant therapy. While modern ethical standards and informed consent laws have significantly strengthened protections against irregular human experiments, there have been instances where ethically questionable research has taken place, often in loopholes, gray areas, or outside traditional regulatory oversights. Now, this is where I start talking about some of the stuff that originally was supposed to be discussed in this. Now, I'm going to hold off on a week before I post this on Strange Stories because I've already gotten a warning on that channel. But right here is where I've been kind of debating on putting it on a live stream when it comes to YouTube. Um, but I think it's safe to do. I hope it is, at least, because I am sick of hearing uh, about. First of all, I don't like the fact that I'm getting warnings because I just even mention this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, this has absolutely nothing to do with false information or nothing. This is straight up research uh, that has been verified. You know what I mean? There is no misinformation that's being brought up in this. Like I said, if you guys have any issues with this and you don't believe anything that is being said here, do the research and find out for yourself. This isn't conspiracy theories or anything of that nature. So, um, I don't know. I'm actually kind of debating on just shutting off my stream at this point for YouTube because I don't know for sure if I want to continue doing the rest of this on there. So I will continue to do the stream on Rumble though, but I really don't know for sure if I want to do that. Um, but yeah, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and continue from this point on. Now, this has to do with corporations and pharmaceuticals that have been crossing the line when it comes to the ethical standards that have been set down by freaking the medical profession as well as the countries um, that they do businesses in. So let me go ahead and get into this uh, when it has concerns about loopholes, gray areas, and outside traditional regulatory oversight. There's various military programs that have historically pushed the boundaries of human testing, often in classified research. Now, you have the U.S. Department of Defense, for example, uh, that has conducted experiments in behavioral control, biological exposure, and cognitive enhancements. While modern oversight has improved classified projects, make full no has improved classified project makes full transparency difficult. In some developing countries, pharmaceutical trials are conducted under looser ethical oversight, sometimes with poorly informed participants. In 2017, reports surfaced that experimental vaccines and drugs were tested on patients in Africa and India without fully informed consent. Ethical concerns often revolve around participants not being made aware of risks or not understanding the nature of the experimental treatments. Recent studies have involved cultural human brain cells and even attempting to connect lab-grown neurons to AI systems. While these do not yet involve full human experimentation, some bioethicists warn that as we move towards more advanced neural experimentation, informed consent might be bypassed in covert research settings. Unregulated biohackers and private researchers sometimes experiment on themselves or volunteers without institutional oversight. Some extreme cases include people injecting unapproved genetic modifications or testing experimental nootropic drugs to boost intelligence. International agreements like the Declaration of Helsinki and the Belmont Report set strict standards for ethical research, but enforcement varies by countries. Loopholes exist, especially in private funded, non disclosed research where consent procedures may not be fully transparent. Here are some of the most controversial modern experiments and ethical debates related to human experimentation, biotechnology, and medical ethics. Chinese scientist He Jiankui used CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology to alter the DNA of human embryos, which were then implanted, leading to the birth of twin girls. He claimed he modified the CCR5 gene to make them resistant to HIV, but the scientific community widely condemned the experiment for ethical violations, lack of oversight, unknown long-term effects, and stuff like that. And then potential unintended mutations. Lack of informed consent. Parents may not have fully understood the risk. He Jiankui was sentenced to 3 years in prison and banned from conducting further research. While germline editing, modifying embryos, is widely banned, some scientists advocate for controlled trials for disease prevention. The biggest concern is designer babies using gene editing for enhancing intelligence, physical traits, or strength. Scientists created synthetic human embryos without sperm or eggs using stem cells. These embryos were not implanted, but raise ethical questions about whether they should be granted legal rights. Some fear secret implantation attempts could occur without regulatory oversight. Scientists have successfully grown mammal fetuses in external artificial wombs. Some bioethicists worry this technology could lead to fetus farming or organ harvesting, military research into accelerated human development, testing controversial gene modifications outside human wombs. Scientists have grown brain organoids, small clumps of human brain cells, that show brain activity similar to premature infants. In 2019, researchers connected these organoids to mouse brains, and they integrated into the neural circuits, raising concerns. Could these mini brains become conscious? Could lab-grown brains be used for AI-enhanced intelligence? DARPA, The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency has funded experiments to enhance human cognition using brain-computer interfaces. Some leaked reports suggest brain stimulation experiments on soldiers to enhance reaction time and memory, raising military bioethics concerns. Several pharmaceutical companies have been caught testing experimental drugs in developing countries without fully informed consent. In the 1990s, Pfizer tested an unapproved antibiotic Trovan on Nigerian children without properly informing families, leading to deaths and disabilities. Vulnerable populations are often targeted for risky drug trials because they have less access to legal protections. Scientists have successfully grown cells inside of animal embryos like pigs and monkeys to study organ transplants. Uh, some of the concerns include if a monkey has human neurons, does it have human-like intelligence? Also, secret military research into creating enhanced soldiers or spies with mixed traits. A Chinese-American research team created the first human-monkey hybrid embryo, keeping it alive for 20 days in a lab. While the stated goal was organ growth, many fear undisclosed experiments. Now, the CIA's MKUltra program, which took place in between the 1950s and 1970s, secretly tested mind-altering drugs, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation on unwitting subjects. Some declassified documents suggest research never fully stopped, and modern programs use AI-driven psychological conditions through social media. Also, advanced brain stimulation to alter emotions and decision-making. Some private organizations, like the Nobel Prize Sperm Bank, have tried to create a superior gene pool by only allowing high IQ or physically gifted donors. The ethical concerns that were raised there is, would designer babies be considered superior citizens? Would this lead to discrimination against natural-born people? While modern bioethics laws exist, loopholes remain in classified research, private biotech labs, and developing nations. Some scientists push ethical boundaries with gene editing, brain research, and synthetic biology, leading to potential secret trials. So that right there is what I wanted to do when it comes to this topic. I could have gotten deeper into a lot of this when it comes to the iron lung and things of that nature, but this is something that I've really wanted to get out. But at the same time, it gets pretty deep and pretty dark. There's an entire history of this stuff, okay, when it comes to weird science, and especially with surgeons. The techniques and the experiments that took place in order for people to learn what they've learned in surgery is just completely outlandish. It's more than Frankenstein. It's actually a lot more than Frankenstein when you really get into this stuff and you start researching it. So I was able to make this to an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm glad that I was able to do that. Sorry it took me so long to get this out. Like I said, I've been having issues right now in personal issues that are going on. So I hope you guys did enjoy it. Galactic Fire T-shirts. Thanks for making a comment on Rumble. Thanks for everybody on Rumble and on Beam who stopped in to watch the stream. Got 3 viewers on Beam, 5 on Rumble, and Galactic Fire made a comment. I appreciate that. Also, I have 5 views on X, and thanks to Free OX who just followed me on D Live, and I believe that's it. I believe I've got everything done. We've had 42 views on YouTube, and I've had 1, sometimes 2 viewers on YouTube. Thanks for that as well. So, with that being said, I'm going to end this. I'm coming back here in a little bit to do my second feature, which is going to be ancient history. So if you guys stick around, I should be back on later, and I'm going to go back over more of Canaanite religion tonight and things of that nature, so that I can kind of be thorough about that before I move forward with the stuff that I'm doing. So this is going to be another interesting night when it comes to ancient mysteries for me too. So if you guys want to stick around, I will be back in a little bit. Thank you for watching, and I am going to end this stream.